See them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
This is an amazingly cool sign. How do we make that?
This one's really cool, Bruce. This one's made on our new digital printer. It's made for emergency management. You can see it has lots of colors, lots of small text. There's no way we could have made this by hand. So this is a print job that we just stick on metal.
Awesome.
It's really cool. This is an overhead street sign that we put up at the signals. It's pretty big. As you can
this
see.
is really big.
Yeah.
And I like the logo.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. We also respond to all these signs in the field. Would you like to see the truck we do that with?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's go.
Your crew not only fabricates the signs, but they install them as well. Tell me about the posts.
We used to be all wood, and now we're converting to metal posts like this, okay? So all of our stop signs are on metal posts.
So the metal posts are more durable and can be replaced much more quickly and easily.
Correctly.
Stop signs and yield signs are key to keeping an intersection safe. How quickly do we get those replaced if they're down?
We have 2 people on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we typically are going to respond and have that sign up within an hour.
Wow, that's incredibly responsive.
We actually won a national award for that response time.
Steve, thank you for taking us inside the sign shop and for keeping Pierce County roads safe.
Thanks, Bruce, for coming out. We appreciate it.
I know what it feels like to have no hope. That drives me day in and day out. I wake up each day thinking about who can I help and how can I help them? When I'm encountering someone in a homeless situation, my heart goes out to them because I've been in that situation. I was on the verge of homelessness. I understand what PTSD feels like. I understand what alcoholism feels like. A lot of people ask me, why do you do this? It's part of who I am. It's part of why I enlisted in the military. It's part of why I volunteered to be a police officer. It's why I wanted to be a SWAT sniper. It's part of my DNA to reach out and help someone. When I'm out trying to reach other people and I see them at their worst, I know that there's another side of them. I want them to experience what I've experienced in the life of sobriety and turning your life around. The Department of Labor, Veterans Employment and Training Service has changed my life. Without DOL vets, I feel like I would still be caught in that vicious cycle. To have them there meant the world to me that with assistance from the Department of Labor, I was able to get my barber license back. They helped me with a set of clothes, a set of tools. When I started my own barbershop, I thought really good way for me to give back is to offer free haircuts to anyone that was in need. And it was so much more than just a free haircut. It was inviting them into my shop. It was that 30, 45 minutes time I got to spend and talk with them, let them know how my life changed by getting the help that I needed, by letting them know what's available to them, knowing that there's hope. What empowers me is knowing that the time that I spend with them is going to change their life. So one of the amazing things that I love about the shop, even the name Valor, which means bravery in battle, it comes from my family history in the military. I've had over 60 people in my immediate family serve. My father enlisted in World War II at the age of 17, just months after his brother was killed in Normandy. When a veteran leaves the military, you feel like you've lost part of your identity. And it's such a sense of loss that it sends some people into a downward spiral of they don't know how to cope without being part of something bigger than themselves. DOL Vets comes in, provides them that camaraderie, provides them a safe place to go, to be able to look for help, look for services, someone they can confide in, empowering to them for what they can do in the future. There is a life after the military. You can become a successful business owner. You can become an amazing employee. You can be part of another organization.
It's truly amazing to be able to say we serve all veterans. As a grantee, the Department of Labor's Vets is the only one that provides employment opportunities and funding for our veterans that are homeless or at risk of homelessness. There isn't another agency locally or nationally that is able to provide that. So many of our homeless veterans are facing either some kind of mental health crisis, some type of substance abuse crisis. They feel like there's no out. There's no means to becoming successful. This program really allows us an opportunity to assist them with case management to get them out of that crisis, as well as wellness programming. So it's a really holistic approach. Our career advisors work one-on-one with each veteran, and we're able to translate the skills that they did in the military into the civilian sector. It's not just about securing sustainable employment opportunities. It's really getting to the root of every issue. We want to make sure that each veteran has safe and affordable housing. They're connected to all of the community resources that they need and deserve so that they can become successful members of society. When I see a veteran become successful, or I see a veteran like Chuck come back and want to give back to our brothers and sisters that are currently in the program, that's how I know we've made a difference.
When you look at homelessness and you look at people that are incarcerated, they go hand in hand. It's just part of that vicious cycle. So with the prison ministry, I go into the prison once a week to give them hope, to tell them at one point in my life, I was where you are. I was in a red jumpsuit. I was incarcerated. I went from controlling society as a police officer to being totally controlled. I would consider myself a suicidal drinker, someone that would take a bottle of vodka, chug it, pass out, wake up, and do it again. It really brought me to the darkest place in my life. I can relate to the struggles that you've had that got you here. Just by sharing those, you gain such trust, you build such a camaraderie with these men, because they look at you as, hey, if Chuck can do it, I can do it too. What I have seen happen
Are we good? Okay. Good morning. I'm going to call to the order the Pierce County Council and a Committee of the Whole. Today is April 16, 2025. The time is 9:34. Can the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Yambe.
Here.
Councilmember Morrell.
Excused but on his way.
Councilmember Kruger.
Excused but on our way.
Councilmember Ayala.
Here.
Councilmember Denson.
Excused.
Councilmember Herrera.
Present.
Councilmember Hitchin.
Here.
You have 4 members present.
4 members present means we have a quorum. We have 3 presentations, though one is going to be slightly modified today, so this will probably not go the full time that we were anticipating. But again, this learning journey we're on to prepare for the 26-27 budget is beginning now. So we're going to turn this over to staff to kind of run through a couple of items. If there's questions that you have, really fluid, just push your button and we'll interrupt because we do have time today. So we'll go ahead and turn this over to any objections to the agenda as presented? Okay. We will go ahead and move forward. Mr. Taylor.
All right. Thank you. Good morning, Hugh Taylor, Chief of Staff. Just to follow up on what the chair just noted, there is one modification or change to today's agenda, and that involves item number 5, which is the fiscal year 2024 end of year report. That report will not be presented today by Finance. We received late word that Finance staff is not available today due to factors outside their control. Staff did leave the material in the packet though, so it's available for members to have access to and review. The plan is to get that presentation scheduled later this month at a study session so Ms. DeMuth can be present and present the information to answer questions that you inevitably will have regarding the presentation. So what I'd like to do is just run through agenda item 4, which is the draft 2025 Committee of the Whole schedule. I can speak to agenda item number 5 just briefly, but it's not staff's intention today to make a presentation on that. And then I'll turn things over to Mr. Boki towards the end of the agenda today. Okay, so today's meeting is intended to be the first in a series of Committee of the Whole meetings. They're going to focus on the Pierce County budget. These meetings are intended to help you monitor the status of the 2024 and 2025 biennial budget. They're also intended to help you be prepared for the budget deliberations that will happen in the fall for the 2026-2027 biennial budget process, as well as the budget adoption. The proposed schedule that I'm going to run through here in a moment calls for the Committee of the Whole to meet once monthly, and that those meetings will occur throughout the summer into the early fall, basically until the executive submits his budget proposal, which, as you know, is due in September, late September. There is a schedule that's on the screen behind me. Great. So I'm going to go ahead and, as Mr. Boki was indicated, I can't see the screen, so I'm going to use the packet here on my computer to run through it. So today, April 16th, is your first meeting. The intention today was to run through the end of the year report for fiscal year 24, which was kind of the star of the show. Today, again, that material is in your packet, and we'll get finance staff up here in the next couple of weeks to present that information to you. That end of the year report covers the general fund, special revenue funds, enterprise funds, internal service funds, how they're doing, how they are relative to what was budgeted, revenues received, expenditures made. Very important information that's in your packet. Today, Mr. Boki is going to walk through what staff refers to as the council monthly budget reports. These are a series of reports that the council instituted last year and I guess and the year before that cover a variety of topics that are intended, again, to help keep you informed and help you effectively monitor the budget. Our next meeting after today's meeting is planned for May 28th. At that meeting, we will go through the first quarter report for fiscal year 25. We are asking finance at that meeting to present the revenue forecast and risk model for next biennium. Again, that's intended to help you prepare for your budget deliberations in the fall, and to help you prepare for your budget retreat that's planned in June. So that information will be timely for you. It's the same information that departments receive and the instructions to help the departments in the preparation of their budgets. Now, we know that it's very much an evolving landscape these days, so it's the information is as good as the information is at that point in time. It's, of course, very much subject to change. At that May meeting, staff will also run through the planned budget schedule for the fall, both, similar to the information that we ran through at your retreat in March, perhaps a little updated, but we'll run through that. We'll focus on what we as staff anticipate as the internal process in the office to help the council navigate and make decisions relative to next biennium. We'll also get an update on ARPA expenditure status. As members that were here last year know, all the ARPA funds were obligated by the federal deadline. The intention here is just to give you an update as to how those funds are being expended. Hopefully get some information on outcomes that may have been achieved as a result of those expenditures. Relevant information I think you'll feel is important. June 5th is the budget retreat that we've talked about. Currently that is planned as a half-day budget retreat. Later in June, we'll talk some more about council budget process planning. We are also planning for a discussion of what we refer to as the allocation processes. This topic is intended to address those funds which have a specific allocation methodology set forth in either Pierce County Code or state law. Those allocation processes really control or limit or inform how the council budgets for those particular funds. And so staff, council staff thought it would be very useful for members to understand which of those funds are subject to those allocation processes, what those allocation processes are, so that when you get to the fall, you're not surprised if there's some limitations on how those funds can be budgeted. No meetings in July. We have the committee reduction, as well as a number of other items on members' calendars in July that really constrains the ability to have a meeting in July. August will be the second quarter report, and then again, presentation of the council monthly budget reports that Mr. Boakey is going to cover a little bit later. And then the final meeting in this series of the committees of the whole is September the 11th. And what staff is anticipating is that meeting, the executive branch may present budget adjustments for the biennium. Traditionally, there is an end of biennium budget adjustment, right? Changes inevitably happen across a 2-year period that result in some changes in the budget, and those are typically done as a supplemental budget. We refer to it as the end of year budget adjustment. So we're anticipating that will likely happen, and so we're planning for that in the schedule. At that September meeting, we're hoping at that point to finalize your budget process, so have your budget schedule nailed down, what your expectations are in terms of committees of the whole, the material that staff, both at the council and executive branch, will present to you. And so we're hoping to have that all fully developed. At this point in time, staff is planning to mirror the process that we used for the 24-25 biennial budget. We have received very good feedback about the effectiveness of that process. Takes a lot of effort for that process, but it did produce a result that so far we've heard is a good result for the members. So that will be the starting point, and then we'll look to members to inform us as to how we should change it and improve it. So that's the schedule that's laid out based upon at least staff's recommendations. We're hoping today that if you see any gaps in this schedule, if there's topics that perhaps you want to hear about that are relevant to the budget that aren't on this list, you point those out to us, and we will adjust accordingly. But that's what I have on this particular topic this morning, council members, and I am prepared to answer questions.
Thank you. And for the record, Councilmembers Morrell and Kruger joined us while we were going over this initial schedule. Are there questions or wonders around the schedule? I think for me, the only thing, because it's not like clearly on here, is just knowing that being fluid to what may happen at the federal level if things change. I think that's something we need to come back to, just being apprised. And then I think the other part is, depending on what happens at the legislature, impacts to possible revenue sources, impacts to possible increased unfunded mandates, anything that could fluctuate our ability that is dependent on other elected officials in our state and our country. So I think making sure that we're keeping apprised of that instead of doing it right at the beginning. Was I hearing feedback? Okay. Okay. I was like, I'm hearing myself from across the room. But the idea of just making sure that we're keeping on top of that instead of waiting till right before we actually start deliberating on our budget seems important. So
I agree. We'll make a notation of that to make certain it's part of the, we'll probably do it a couple of times. The May 28th forecasting and risk model. We'll know what at least happened with the legislative session at that point in time. Again, the federal landscape is very fluid.
The federal landscape.
So we'll see what happens there for sure.
Any other questions on this? Okay, thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Okay, so Chair, I can briefly touch on the next topic if you want.
Yeah.
Okay. This will be very quick. And so, again, I know Finance's intention was to present today. They put a lot of energy into preparing the presentation materials that you can see. Just some circumstances occurred that outside of their control that did not enable them to be here today. So the report that's in the packet is the traditional end-of-year report out that Finance does. As I noted earlier, it covers the general fund, it covers the special revenue funds, the enterprise funds, and the internal service funds. It includes information on revenues, how revenues are performing or relative to what was budgeted or forecast, expenditures. It reports out information on over expenditures, under expenditures by funds, staffing levels, salary savings, a variety of useful information. It also includes information on the general fund balance, the ending fund balance for fiscal year 24 relative to what was forecast in the budget. Covers sales tax collections, how those are performing relative to the budget. Similarly, for the special revenue funds and enterprise funds and internal service funds, it also contains similar information comparing budget to actuals so that you can see a good snapshot of where things currently are and where they may be headed for the rest of the biennium. In deference to Finance, I'm not going to go through and summarize. I certainly have notes on how the different funds have performed, but out of deference to Finance and to allow them to be here and answer questions for you that will inevitably come up, I'm not going to run through that information today, but it is available in your packet for you. So that's my 1-minute summary, council members, and I'm certainly happy to answer any questions that I can at this point.
Thank you. And I do not believe Julie Newth has hired her replacement yet, I think, as part of the issue. Otherwise, we would have been able to do that. But she's a one-woman show right now at Finance, so we want to make sure that we allow them to present. Are there questions on this? I think my only question, and this is more a historical look, when I look at the revenues versus actuals and so on and so forth, a lot of the time it's not, there are several in here, not this one, but there's several others where it's way below 50%. And so is that normal that we don't quite move through? And I can't remember from the last time we did this.
Paul Boki, council staff. Yes, I mean, typically we are under, remember, there are additional costs coming into the new year because there's cost of living adjustments for everybody. So typically your first year expenditures will be lower. And then when you get into the capital items that Mr. Taylor's aware of, those items are, you know, a lot of those in this report are way under expenditures, right?
Okay.
And so as the year plays out, you'll see that change, but that's typical.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful. Any other questions? I wouldn't go very far, Mr. Bokies. I think you're next.
So, Chair, the next item is the council monthly budget reports. Your packet does include these reports. Mr. Boki is going to run through a number of them at a high level today. For the two new council members, these will be, I think, new information. I think you've seen some of these reports distributed, like the ARPA report, for instance, but I don't think all of these.
Yeah.
So Mr. Boki will give you a quick review of the reports.
Yeah, there's about 4 or 5 reports in there. So the first one is the monitoring report. This is the FTE changes. So this one, I will note, comes from finance. So if you go on to Open Pierce County, you'll see another number, and it's how and when positions are posted and that kind of thing. So this number comes from finance. It's also through February, although last night I looked at, and the March numbers have now been posted. So as of the end of February, just the bottom line there, 223 vacant positions out of 3,382, which is, by my math, under 7%, which is, I don't know what our goal is, right? So I think the numbers that really jump out, or that the council is really interested in, is that sheriff law enforcement commission staff, which is still at 24 out of 332 commission positions, which is probably a little higher than you would like. I would note that when I pulled the March report, it was down to 20. So that's a positive sign. The corrections number just is not moving much. And it's still at 39 as of the end of March. So the correction number continues to show some difficulty. So I think there's some good news in here, but it is a slow process, especially on the commission law enforcement side, is what I think the bottom line is on this one. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them, but best I can.
Other questions on vacancies? Councilmember Morrell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Boki, my question is on vacancy savings. At what point can we spend that savings? Or do we always have to have in reserve 100% capacity to fill those and fund those positions? Can we at some point start cutting into those dollars and using those dollars for ongoing operations?
So thank you very much, Councilmember Morrell. The general rule, and the general rule means what's in the budget document, is the salary savings and benefit savings are accrued, and actually, if I could show you the number, it actually reduces the budget, right? It shows as a negative number. And if you want to use those, you're a department head, and you want to use those, you have to go to the finance department and make a proposal. And then the finance department then allows you to use those salary savings. So, and I think Ms. DeMuth will give those reports. We get those quarterly as to salary savings, and then how they're, and if they have some use of salary savings. There are exceptions. The council allowed, for instance, and I don't have it in front of me, sheriff or corrections to use a portion of their salary savings immediately. You let that accrue within that, but I think they're now outside of that number, so those amounts are now accruing. So, but that's the general rule. So that you can't just spend it on your own. You have to go to finance and get that approval.
Okay.
And that's been in the budget for a while, and we'll see if the new executive is going to continue with that or not.
Okay.
I would add one thing. The executive office did put out guidance to departments on use of salary savings that more or less mirrors what Mr. Boki referred to in the budget, but it's their standard operating procedure, their policy. Staff can certainly provide that to members if you're interested in seeing it.
Okay.
It applies to executive branch departments, does not apply to the council. So.
I would also point out on this report that there's a number of these departments that I would not expect that a lot of positions would be being filled because they are looking for a new director. Now, in some cases, the new director is there now, so we should see some movement on this. But there's, at the beginning of the year, 4 or 5 of these. And I don't know for a fact, but my guess is in most cases when the head person's not there, people are saying, well, let's just wait and see what that person wants. So it doesn't surprise me. I mean, you've got a number of departments there that or have just got their director in place or are in the process of getting their director in place. So outside of law enforcement, which you know the challenges of and you're well aware of, I would expect that those numbers would start to change, hopefully for the positive. You've also just approved, and that's not on there, 5 new positions in human services for aging and long-term care. So.
Thank you for that. I'm just looking at our office, and it says we have 7 vacancies, and I'm going through the math and trying to figure that out.
So this is what Open Pierce County, the HR reporting system is showing. We're in the process of still doing some cleanup and Workday. There were some position conversions, for instance, that resulted in positions looking as if they're vacant in our organizational chart, but in fact aren't. And so we're in the process of cleaning that up. Even with that stated, the 7 number is excessive. It's only a couple of positions that fall into that spot. So.
And at the end of March, it was 5. Yeah. But I would also note this is a high-level report, meaning I think performance audit's in here. So you've got that 3rd position in performance audit that's hanging out there that wasn't funded, but it's probably in here. So you've got that, and then there is limitations to this report. For instance, planning and public works. Well, I mean, there's 800 and something employees, and there's umpteen departments, and there's 44 positions. So there are different reports out there that help you a little bit with that. But again, this is a higher level report, but finance has told me that this is the one that they have the confidence in.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on this page? Okay, we'll move on. Thank you.
This report is a little bit of this is a homegrown report, and the maker of this is on vacation. So I'm going to do my best. These are, as it says, this report tracks the status of FTE additions in the 24-25 biennial budget as directed by the budget ordinance. And this goes through 32.1 positions. And whether or not those positions have been filled or not, you can see that a number of them have been filled. A number of them are in the process of being filled. There are interviews taking place. You see there, office assistant, the very first one. The assessor treasurer has submitted a request to convert this position because we have a new assessor treasurer, and that's within the assessor treasurer's right to do so. This one we actually send over to HR, and then they send this back. So this is just another way of looking at open positions that you've asked for in the budget or that the executive requested 2 years ago now or a year and a half ago, and see how we're doing on those.
Questions on this page? So the ones that say interview or offer and say yes, we're in the process of hiring them, paperwork, that kind of thing. So then we would assume in the next month's report, that vacancy would come off and then, okay.
Correct. I think we've been getting these quarterly, actually.
Questions? Councilmember Ayala.
Thank you, Chair. And this might be getting into the nitty-gritty in here. Toward the bottom of that list, there is a county attorney 4 listed as a 1 FTE, but then in the notes it says limited duration. Can you explain what 1 FTE and limited duration?
I'd have to look at the underlying document on that because it says supplemental amendment. So I'd have to go search for that.
Okay. Thank
to
you.
find out
Appreciate
what
it.
it's, what the thought process is. I have that marked, and I'm not, you know, and we don't have anybody here who can speak to that.
I could speak to your question about limited duration, not the position itself. So limited duration employment or employee is an employee authorized under the county administrative guidelines that can be employed in a position for up to 3 years. They could be full-time, but it's intended to indicate a position that has an ending date on it. And so when the council deliberates with the budget, you'll see there's a number of positions in the prosecuting attorney's office, for instance, that were added over the last couple of years using ARPA funds and other sources that you'll have to wrestle with, right? What to do with those going forward into the next biennium. But that's the distinction. It's a term used in the county administrative guidelines to indicate a limited period for employment.
All right. Thank you.
Further questions? Councilmember Krueger.
Thank you, Chair. The grant compliance analyst, not created, requestion not started to recruit. What does that mean? What is requestion? Or is that supposed to be requested?
I think it's requisition.
Requisition?
So we can look into that. This came from HR.
Okay.
I believe that's requisition, so they're probably starting that process.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on.
So this is one I think that the council, we created this as part of the whole emphasis on housing. And this was an attempt to try to include all the major housing items that we would have revenue sources mainly. This is all just about revenue. So you have the homeless document recording fee, the affordable housing document recording fee, the housing and homeless fund, and the housing related sales tax. So the housing and related sales tax, of course, is the newest item. That's why there aren't any revenue figures in there prior to 2023, which was when the housing related sales tax was added. You can see, and this is an interesting kind of tail of the tape here. The housing and the homeless document recording fee is a very much a pure document recording fee. I mean, you really can see how the world of mortgages is working just by watching this, right? So you see those larger numbers around 2020, 2021, lots of refis, in very, very low mortgage rates, a lot of activity. The number then starts to drop with the increase in long-term rates in 2023. It stabilizes in 2024, and year-to-date 2025 is not great. But it's early, and there'll be more sales activity, spring and summer. although I will make comments a little later that maybe all is not well in the real estate market, but we'll just see where it goes, right? But don't expect big things, no windfall. If we hit that budget number, we'll be doing good, is what I'm thinking. Affordable housing document recording fee. That's a much smaller number. It's just a different fee, and I don't have the fees written in front of me, and I don't have the fee chart in front of me. And it also has some state and federal grants in there. That is not a huge source of income for us. It's been fairly steady, and it seems to have started the year off pretty well, right? Because the big number there is the state grant revenue came in. So that's the item that really helped you. Now, if it doesn't come in the rest of the year. So Housing and Homeless Fund is where a lot of you do have some charges for services in there, but that's where the federal and state money goes. And this does say a lot, right? You go back to 2018 and you've got Housing and Homeless Fund 10,758,000, and I have it as intergovernmental revenue, so that's both federal and state grants. I was able to start breaking it out in 2022. So that you can see the increase there with COVID in the federal effort towards housing. The number in intergovernmental revenue went to $95.7 million in 2021. And then in 2022, the federal effort was $73.4 million, and state grants were almost $8.7 million, and then it begins to drop off. So your total figure there was $91 million. Then it was about a little less than 42 million in 2023. It bounced back up to 53 million last year because of a greater state effort. The state attempting to try to backfill the federal government at $35 million. Your budget is 56 million. So that would, if it comes in to budget, you'll be above last year by a bit. I would say keep in mind several things here. Our fiscal year, January 1st to December 31st. State fiscal year ends on June 30th. So we're not only thinking this is what the state will give us their fiscal year between now and June, between January and June, but also what we're thinking about what we're going to get between July 1st and the end of the year. The federal year is supposed to be October 1st. So, you just don't know, right? And then we have all the questions about the federal dollars, and you do see there that the federal dollars so far this year have been anemic, but that's not to say that they just won't roll in one day when they say, okay, release funds, right? So hard to say where the federal dollar situation is going to be. Now, you're expecting almost $22 million in federal money, which is overall, when you look at the whole housing revenue side of $80 million, including the housing related sales tax, is about a quarter of your dollars. So if there's a significant reduction in that number, it will impact things, and those are discussions that you'll have to have when you go into the fall as to if the numbers really start to drastically change, how does that impact your plans for housing? And and we've got staff to help with that, and I think a number of people would have to be in the room to try to almost calendar things out as to certain projects that we were planning to support. And who knows with the state? I don't know. We'll know a lot more, as Mr. Taylor said, at the end of the session. So and what the housing dollars look like. So then there's the housing and related sales tax fund. which started in 2023. That's why you have that low number. 2024 was a pretty good year. It's over 17.3 million. The expectation this year is about 17.8. We're off to a little bit of a slow start this year, and we may, and I'm going to speak to that a little bit, maybe as to the outlook on that, but that is also something to watch.
Okay, we're going to go to Councilmember Kruger for a question.
Thank you, Chair. I just was curious, is there an advantage to budgeting on a calendar year or being on the same cycle as the state? What would advantage, disadvantage be?
I think all the municipalities in the state of Washington go calendar year, I believe, and we might even be required to do that.
In state law for that? Maybe it's because session ends and you have time then to figure out what you're going to get.
No, I don't know of any municipalities that go other than a calendar year in the state.
So I'm wondering, is there an advantage, disadvantage?
Oh, I think it would be, I don't know.
Okay.
That's a good question, but it is an issue, right? I think back in the old days, right, and this predates everybody in this room, the federal government actually, their fiscal year was July 1st, and they were already having a tough time getting it done, and so they actually moved it in the 50s or 60s or something to October 1st, and now they don't even really do that, right? So I mean. Do they have a fiscal year? Theoretically, I guess. I'm doing my little pontificating here, but it really is confusing. And I'm the budget guy, right? And I'm trying to follow this stuff, and I'm reading articles, and they just do continuing resolutions, and then you have to ask, well, what did they do inside that continuing resolution? And then it's like, and now they're actually talking about the administration's going to send a rescission package to Congress. And that meaning they want cuts in the current fiscal year, which ends September 30th. So we're now in April. This package is only being talked about. I don't think it's up at Congress. So you're running out of time in the fiscal year, but they're asking for, so who knows, right?
Well, you make me feel better if it confuses you. So, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for the question. I think it's one of the reasons I'm asked during the beginning part of this about, like, I really think we need to make sure we're continually coming back to what's on the table, what's been pulled off the table, what the impacts are, so that we aren't trying to do all of that digesting and thinking about impacts when we start the budget deliberations. That is too late. We need to really be thinking about that. So question from me, and we'll see if anyone else. So on here where it says federal grants, and it's in 2025, it's $21,924,000. Is that ARPA dollars, or is that a HUD dollars, or is it a blend of anything that we got?
That's outside of, well, it could be, if it has to do with federal ARPA dollars, it could be. That's all federal dollars that we're planning to get. Okay. The ARPA dollars we have, right? So when you say ARPA, I think we have all those. They're sitting in the bank and we're spending them. That's over here on that ARPA report that we'll get the latest update here in the next few days.
So these numbers do not include ARPA dollars?
No, this is just federal dollars coming in. So it could have been in the past. Clearly in the past there were COVID dollars, right? That's how we got to 73 million in 2022. Could have been rental assistance, could have been anything. That 133 fund is the catch-all fund for housing.
Okay.
But this is what's budgeted currently, so we should be able to get the information on what the budget assumptions were, which federal grants were assumed that informed that $21,924,000 item. I think that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, because it's a large pot of money that's planned, looks like it's planned, it's budgeted for this year, and with some of the clawback conversations that I've heard, including ARPA, I worry. So, justifiably so, especially if we budgeted. So, okay, any other questions on this? Appreciate the deep dive today. So we'll go on, Mr. Boki.
Okay, so the next report is a report of tracks the status of other budget appropriations added by amendment without specific reporting requirements in the 2024-25 biennial budget as directed in the budget ordinance. So these are things that were added, but you didn't say, I mean, the next report after this, which we're not going to go through, has all the reporting. But these are items that got added and mainly by the council, and this explains the progress on those. So there are a number of really important items in here. I'm happy to say that when I looked at this report and went through it, that a number of these items are complete, much more so than when you asked earlier about under expenditures. The entire first page, in fact, is complete. And then when we get to the second page, we get to there are a number of ongoing items, and then there's two, the notification of fraud awareness, notification that the auditor asked for and that you agreed to, and that's actually something that the council added. And then the Riemann Hall one, which there looks like that's not going to be started, and it looks like it's probably not going to be started until 2026 at the earliest. So I think this report actually sets up, this is probably the best news report because a lot of things have been done or are in progress. And so I think this has done pretty well.
Questions on this one? Okay, we'll move on.
So I'm going to leave, the next one is the big report of, and really staff uses this, and it's a lot of the reporting and that kind of thing. And so staff tries to update this, and this goes on for about 20 pages. So I'm not going to get into those items at all. I do want to say a couple of things, if I may, on, I do get these state reports, and I may send the latest one out to you. The economic and revenue update, it comes out every month. They talk about the national numbers, and they talk about the state numbers, the financial numbers, and so it's really the first look at how state revenues are going. I will say when we got the April report, which covers March 11th to April 10th, don't ask me how they came up with that. The revenues at the state level were down, and not down. I don't know what at the state world is substantial because they've been up a bit, but this is a sign, right? That this is a potential sign that as they're wrapping up in Olympia, that things are maybe not well, right? The one item in the economic numbers, not the revenue numbers, that concern me, that you need to be aware of, is there was a big drop in permitting, residential housing permitting, and that's both single-family residential and multifamily, a big drop. And it's always been in the kind of the upper 30s and whatnot, and it dropped significantly. And they do this at an annual rate, right? So the annual, where is this now? Housing construction has slowed so far in the first quarter of 2025 due to a weak month of multifamily construction. A total of 33,900 units at a seasonally adjusted annual rate were permitted in January and February, down from 39,700 units in the fourth quarter. Permits in January and February consisted of 17,800 single-family and 16,100 multifamily units. February multifamily units totaled just 9,800. Which was the weakest month since 2016. The March forecast assumed 39,900 units for the first quarter as a whole. So there is it a blip? Who knows? I mean, it's just the uncertainty out there. Just people have just held off for a month. Who knows? We'll see. But we are a very residential construction dependent county traditionally. And so it impacts our sales tax a lot. It impacts impact fees, the REIT, various things like that. So it's something that we're going to need to watch. So that's all the remarks from me.
So, Chair, with your permission, can I just circle back to the last two reports real quick? I know Mr. Boki just touched on them really quickly, but I just want to provide a little bit more context to the reports, especially for the two new council members. So the first report that Mr. Boki referenced is the one at page 51. It's titled Actions Requested Through Proviso in the 24-25 biennial budget. I just point this one out because this is where much of the discussion when you're doing budget deliberations will occur around provisos. In addition to determining what the appropriation should be across the funds, a lot of the amendments that are offered or debated often have to do with provisos where you're asking, restricting the appropriation and then asking the department to do something specifically with the appropriation, some type of reporting or some specific action. So there's a lot of items listed here. Many of these items were the result of a council budget amendment. Not all of them. The executive branch will occasionally include provisos to funds as well when the budget's submitted. But I just want to highlight the importance of it. Paul's correct that staff does use it. Staff uses it to monitor to make certain that the budget's being implemented in the way that the council intended that it be implemented. But I just want to point it out because this will be an area where you'll probably spend a fair amount of time in the budget deliberations. And then the second report is the one at page 61 of your packet. And this is the report that's titled Actions Requested of Departments, Boards, and Commissions. So this is staff and council members sometimes refer to this as the budget trailer. These are items that aren't in the budget itself, but are necessary to implement the budget or are associated with the budget. Every item that's on this list is a result of a council amendment. These are specific requests from council to departments to do certain things. Typically, the information that's produced in these reports is intended to inform future budget action, or it's intended to provide oversight of the executive branch when they're carrying out the budget. So again, very important item. There's many requests that are listed in this trailer. And again, I just pointed out because you'll spend a fair amount of time on this item as well in the budget deliberations. So those are my two editorial comments to those two reports. So.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to Councilmember Ayala with a question or a comment.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Hugh, for that context. I'm curious about the, I believe it's page 49, where we have the council appropriations. Do we have a sense of how many of these items are one-time use items, whereas as opposed to maybe a program that is happening year to year and maybe we're just appropriating toward that?
That's the council additions. I don't have the page numbers.
That's monitoring other budget appropriations in the 24-25 biennial.
Most of those are I can go through it. The youth drop-in activities, NOFA for the tax, that's in the Taxpayer Accountability Act, and I think we're going to provide a little bit more context to that probably next month to the PASTA funding. That's subject to reappropriation depending on the council. That is not a continuing item.
I think it's fair to say the majority of these items are currently one-time items the council would could certainly decide as part of the 26-27 biennial budget to continue or to appropriate funds for these activities. But the majority of these are either a specific project or they are they're funding to allow for a request for proposal or some very specified activity. But the council, within its budget-making authority, certainly could decide as part of the next biennial budget that this is a program you wish to continue and funding at this level or a different level. If that.
I don't see anything on here that the council has to do next time, and in most cases, it's when you add people. Now, departments may say, like, if you don't do this, but I would agree with Mr. Taylor on that. I'm just not seeing anything that you are tied to. I mean, there are items, some of these were like cleanup and almost accounting type things that underlying there's increases. So I would tell you on the first page, 2.6 million reappropriated for delayed vehicle purchase in the Sheriff's Department. There was a change in methodology, and there's some underlying things in that. So in that case, this case, it was delayed, but there's a change in methodology about purchase of vehicles, it gets into accounting. So it's depreciation of vehicles because of the increased cost of the vehicles. And so when the council put more money in to fleet or to the Sheriff's Department so they could pay fleet more money, and fleet is our internal service fund that actually buys the cars and owns the cars, that is a permanent change, right? So underlying some of this, sometimes there's permanent changes in methodology, but most of these are just, here you go, here's one-time items. For instance, and we made mention of that again in the Sheriff's Department. This is where the $1.4 million vacancy savings to overtime and severance costs. This is where the council came in, and the executive, I believe, and said, you can use the first $1.4 million that you have in salary and benefit savings for overtime costs, trying to get in front of the overtime cost number. You didn't have to do that, right? You could have just said, vacancy and benefit savings go the same way that everyone else has to. It sits in a pot, and you got to go ask finance for it. So that's, again, completely at the discretion of the council.
Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. Councilmember Morrell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Boakey, I think there again, this gets to my question yesterday on the Community Grants Fund pertaining to MCEs, because those are council requested. And are we going to limit that? And I guess realistically, any member can ask for anything as far as within the budget, as long as they have the 4 votes. So if you go look at the MCE category, those are all ones that we dreamed up and implemented into the budget. So a lot of them, I can tell you, will probably crop up again because you're dealing with food banks, you're dealing with other interesting projects that we have in the county that we want to make sure is funding. Now, maybe the exec's budget will have those funds in it, but there again, a lot of those MC were created by this council. So that's what I was just curious about on the community grants with the $2 million. Is that going to be the limit that we have, or are we going to be able to ask for the moon and get 4 votes and go for it and then figure it out where we're going to pay for it? So anyway, I just wanted to throw that back out there again.
I do want to add one more item, and I don't want to steal Julie DeMou's thunder. When she talks to the last year, because of the large vacancy savings, and I'm just talking about the general fund now, you'll see actually that even though we run a structural deficit, we actually ran a surplus last year. And it went into the general fund, or fund balance. So we do it. I do want to say this: no matter what goes on at the state level and at the national level, and I harken back to COVID, we are in a much better position than we were in 2008 when things really fell apart, and they really fell apart. We didn't know on a day-to-day basis how low revenues were going to go. The general fund, particularly, I won't speak to all the other funds, is in much better shape. You do not have to make a spur-of-the-minute decision on general fund expenditures, short of a major natural disaster or something, right? Changes, stock market drops, various things like that, even housing drops, the legislature saying, hey, we passed the budget and all the money that we used to give you, we're not giving you, which of course nobody's talking about, I don't believe, so I want to caveat that. You have time now, because of that large fund balance, to say, okay, how do we want to treat this? What do we want to do? Work with the executive and his team on okay, so what bases do we want to cover? What abilities do we have? Where do we want to cut back? Look at a menu of options. Nothing has to be decided, 2 weeks after the legislative session, or if you find out there's not, that doesn't mean that there's not some type of urgency to the situation. It just means you've given yourself time because of very sound fiscal policies where we didn't have that time in 2008. It just caught us, and we had a fund balance. Don't get me wrong, it just wasn't enough, because remember, you have to have a basic fund balance because we're still so dependent upon the property tax. So like at the end of this month, we'll be flush, right? Because all the property tax money will plop in the bank account on the 29th or the 30th. So you've given yourself time to really think items through. You also have more complexity, right? So when I talk about the housing thing, those are long-term numbers, there's commitments, there's this, that, and the other thing, but you also have more staff to help you with how do we line this up and how do we figure those things out. So you're in a good place is what I would say.
But don't panic is what I'm hearing.
Don't panic. I like to say, at least, and take it from a guy who panics a lot, or who overreacts to things, right? As my wife would tell me, I'll tell you when to panic, right? I'll just like, oh, now it's time to panic. But I think you've given yourself time. The being fiscally sound, having those policies in place, has allowed you, at least in the general fund, to take a breath and take a look at how things are going. So I think we'll be okay. We all put our heads together.
Okay. It is part of the reason doing this over time, also as a council, allows us to get our questions answered, do any communicating that we need to with departments or the executive or the judicial system or prosecutor, so that we have all the best information when we actually sit down and start looking at whatever is sent to us. And so I think that's part of why this process has been helpful. It was helpful the last time we did this, to just kind of, and I'm not saying slow walk it, but to deliberately go through and learn together, ask questions, because we all learn a little differently.
So I will, and Mr. Taylor, I think, alluded to it, so I will throw a curveball now.
We were just in the don't panic mode.
Yeah, curveball. And he made mention of it. ARPA. Another issue, along with different fiscal years, is the next biennial budget will straddle the end of ARPA. And a lot of the remaining ARPA monies, which is still, there's something like $60 million out there, are housing, sewers, broadband, right? That's a big bulk of them. There are programs in there that eventually that money is going to peter out in the next 12 months or so. Some of them may be done by the end of the year. How you're going to want to deal with those items, you're going to have to really work with the executive on those, and we're going to have those discussions that there's items in there, and it'll be interesting to see what we hear from the exec side as to do we want to backfill, right? So that's going to be a challenge too that's out there, and that will have to be dealt with. I mean, you do have to deal with it. Saying no is dealing with it. Saying yes is dealing with it. So I think Hugh mentioned that there's some scheduled discussion about that. And so please take a look at those ARPA reports that come in on or about the 20th that are both human services related, and the ARPA reports. It also has MCE and violence prevention dollars, and understand that there's certain programs in there that are going to have to go away if they don't get the ARPA, if they don't get some other source of funding. Now they're going to come in and tell you, but getting in front of that is an item that I think staff's going to have to work on. We're going to probably have to break that up between all the constituent staffers, so we really can understand what we've got out there.
Thank you for that. Are there questions? I think the only thing that might be helpful, and maybe just for all of us and for the staff, is on these monitoring reports, there's a couple in here that have Lee Beth Merrick as the contact person, which, I mean, we still can call her, but it's not her job anymore. So making sure that we know which of the 2 to 3 kind of human services leads we've got, that we know who you would like us as staff to be contacting, even the ones that we say are done. There may be questions that come up with that. So just be helpful, because I was like, oh, call Lee Beth. It's not her job anymore. So other questions or comments? Was that the end of everything that you had, Mr. Boki?
That's all I have.
Okay. Mr. Taylor.
I don't have anything else on the agenda to discuss. I mean, this is an opportunity to provide any feedback about the utility of this meeting, where there may have been some gaps, if you're prepared to talk about that. Otherwise, I don't have anything further.
Well, I will. It's hard because we didn't get the full meal deal. So, but for, I think, feedback, I think after the fact to either Mr. Taylor or Mr. Boki and team, if there's something when you're reading these reports you really wish you had in these reports, and letting them know so they can fine tune them. If there's a lot of information in here, line by line. They do. There's just a lot of information. But if there's something that you feel is really important for you to digesting this in this way, letting them know so they can think about if there's a way to accommodate that, so they can be responsive to us. Other feedback? Okay. I don't have any additional feedback. I appreciate the time. Again, we can't control everything. Sometimes wish we could, and sometimes we're thankful we can't. But we will just continue to work on this on a monthly basis. And I do want to note that you may have noticed a cancellation about the port meeting. So this last week in April into May, Commissioner McCarthy is not going to be in town. And he really, really, really wanted to be here. So we found another date where he would be in town, and it worked for most of us. So we rescheduled. So instead of having 4 pretty intense meetings that week, now you only have 3 intense meetings that week. So get your Thursday back. So any other business?
No, Chair.
Okay. Anything else from anyone? Seeing no other business before us, we are adjourned. Have a wonderful rest of your day.